Hi everyone, this is Tina with Cafe Crop, and we are going to be making a card today that involves a little bit of stitching. And yes, we're going to stitch on paper, but it also allows us to not only give a card that is beautiful, but you can make it as a removable element so that this can come off and actually be, if we put some thread on here, which this particular one I did actually, I tucked it back in here, and I'll show you how to do that. And I just lightly tacked it with two little foam squares so that it can be removed and actually used as an ornament. So this is what we're going to work on today. The kit itself will come with all of the pieces in order to make the card, including your thread and a needle. And then you can put it together. You will need to just add some additional adhesive to put your pieces obviously together on the card. We're going to use some one-sided tape, which is basically like a Scotch tape or whatever brand you use, but I like to call it one-sided tape since normally as crafters we use double-sided tape. We're going to use that. You're going to need a pair of scissors and just some time to sit and enjoy. And then if you want to add additional embellishments on the card, like the centers of the flowers, some little doodads around, if you want to put anything in the centers of each of our stitched areas, you could do that as well, but that'll be up to you. That's not included in the kit because that can be very personal as to what you like, if you like pearls or if you like glitter or whatnot. This, I use Nuvo drops. You could use stickles, you can use anything similar to that, stick-on pearls, but we'll get to that. So we're going to start just with working on our stitched base of our tree and getting that put together and show you really how easy it is. When I first saw this, I thought, oh, this is going to be a lot of work, but actually I'm really enjoying it. It's not that difficult to do, and we're going to get started. So let's set this back here. I think that still be viewable. The kit's gonna come with a red and a green. The selection may vary slightly just depending on what's available when we send them out. And a needle. This is a tapestry needle, so it's a nice blunt end. I'm not gonna pierce the paper because we don't want to. And then I've already pre-threaded it so that we could get started. And with the red and the green, when I did stitch it, I did alternating. You could do all one color, really up to you, but just wanted to show you, like I started with the red on one, the green on the other. So those are options. You can vary your colors. And our die cut is already cut and ready to go with all of the holes that we need. So in order to try and actually finish one, I did start one. I have the red done. We're going to do the green, and I will show you how I do the base of the tree as well. So I'm just going to set this aside. We'll come back to our bowl with all of our goodies in a little bit. But I like to just, oh, look at that. I unthreaded my needle. But the holes on these needles are actually pretty large, so they're pretty easy to thread. I haven't had to need one of those threader, handy dandy threader things. So what we're going to do here, I'll show you how we would start these. So you would pick one of your circles, and I'll take this layer with the 4 circles, and I'm just going to come up through the middle, and then this is where my one-sided tape comes into play. The other thing I found is you don't want to make your string of thread or floss too long because it does knot up pretty easily. So what I'm going to do is just take a small piece of tape, and I'm going to tape it down, and I just kind of tape it right across where I'm going to be stitching so that it's going to get kind of covered up with all of the stitches. And I do want it to be a double thickness of thread. So this was one strand of thread. I probably do from like my fingertip to about an arm's length. This happened to be a single one that I had left, so I just doubled it, but I normally just use 2 single strands together. So I came up through the middle, then I'm going to pick one of the holes on the side, and I'm just going to pull that through, just like that. So then you can just come right back up in the center, and depending on where the thread falls, sometimes it kind of comes up and falls underneath my first stitch, sometimes it falls on top. That just dictates to me my direction that I'm going to go. Good morning, Amy. I'm going to try and watch comments, but sometimes they disappear on me and I don't see them. But I'm just going to keep going around this circle in kind of whatever direction it naturally fell after the first stitch. And this is a really nice way of, you know, if you like to do 2 things at once and maybe you're watching your favorite show or you're having a conversation with someone and wanting to kind of do something else at the same time, like on the phone or a Zoom call or something like that. Good morning, Tisha. So far comments are showing up, so that's good. But I just keep going around and round and back and forth. So my back is looking fairly neat at the moment. It'll look a little bit different when I show you how I move on to the next one. And I like to kind of not necessarily tie it off and start a new one, but I do try and kind of anchor the thread in the back before I go on to the next one, just in case something were to happen. So that it, you know, if a stitch broke somewhere for whatever reason or accidentally got clipped. But the tape, no. I actually just stitch right through the piece of tape, so it kind of keeps it all together. So I've done my last stitch on this circle. When I turn it over, I'm actually just going to run my thread through and kind of see how easily it can get. There we go. It can get twisted. So if you, I'm just running my thread through kind of as if I was tying it off, but I'm not going to tie a knot and cut it and start again. And I haven't been retaping it and they've been staying fine. So then I'm going to move to my next area to stitch, and that tape is going over there, but I'm just going to poke right through that tape. I figure it just kind of gets that extra layer of keeping the thread in place without making it really bulky on the back. Then I come back up through. Now this one seems to be falling more towards the top, so I'm going to go around clockwise instead of counterclockwise and just stitch around. So this is, I like to keep, I made a little pouch of these, just with the needle, the thread, some tape, pair of scissors, and I kind of have it as my to-go item. So if I'm going to go somewhere and want to take a project, because, you know, something to work on that doesn't take up much space, I just have a little zippered pouch, and I have kind of all the pieces I need to just stitch some more of these. Good morning, Jenny. And Tisha, it is easy. It really is. It looks like it's something that's much more complicated than in the finished product than it is to actually make it. Of course, sometimes I have to turn it over to find that hole in the center. But I'm just going round and round. So it really doesn't take too long. And if you can, you know, maybe you're going to a kid's game and you want something to be able to sit and do while you're waiting either for them to play or for timeouts or whatever it is. This is just a really nice portable project. So got the second one finished. I'm just going to turn it over and run the thread through. Sorry, I gotta get it picked up to do that. Just kind of run it through twice so it's kind of knotted again without the knot. Sometimes I do need to let my thread dangle. I don't know if you could have seen that, but if you let it dangle, it'll untwist and unwind, and then it just makes it easy to keep going without it getting quite as twisted. They look beautiful and they're really easy. I think I kind of got addicted. When I first saw it, I thought, I'm not too sure. Do I really, I haven't done stitching or cross stitch type stuff for, I don't know, probably a good 25 years. I think I was trying to figure out when I had last done any large or small stitch piece, and I did a large cross stitch, and it was a really long time ago. So, but I don't know, I found this just enjoyable and relaxing and portable. I'm thinking I want to try and do enough trees and make like a little banner to go like on a mantle fireplace type area. But then I decided to make cards as well, so I have many more I think I need to stitch in order to do this. I also have a snowflake I want to try, but I haven't had a chance to work on that yet. So I will, once I get a chance to work on that, I will post some pictures, at least in my Cafe Crop groups, so that we can see what that looks like. So I just have to be careful when I'm pulling it through. It sometimes does get caught on the edges, and we are working with paper, so you don't want to really yank it too hard like you might with fabric, because you don't want to actually tear your paper. But I cut these out of 110-pound cardstock, so they are a nice weight, but since you do have a lot of holes in it, it does weaken the full structure of the paper. But just like anything with paper, we just work with care, and it won't take us too long. We'll almost be done with this row. And we'll go ahead and we'll do the top one so that we have a finished one, and then I'll show you how I do the base of the tree on another one here, because I have a pile of these that I was cutting. To back these, I have used some gold cardstock to back them, but if you had the die and were cutting them yourselves, you could certainly use any other color. You don't see a lot of the color, so if you can see here, you see it coming through in between, but it's not going to be your predominant color on your card. So all right, we've just got a few more stitches and we will have this row completed. So you see that didn't really take very long. And now that all 4 of those circles are completed, this time I am going to tie it off a little bit more, kind of do more of a knot. And at this point, just depending on what your comfort level is with your stitching, so I'm going to actually just pop it through so I have more of a knot here. Like if you were tying your shoes and you made a circle and went through the loop to knot it. But you could also tape it down at this point. Then I'm just going to trim the end off. Now, this end is pretty short, but if you have a longer piece that you trimmed off, if you save it, you can use it when we make the whole tree into an ornament. So I'm just going to grab another thing of thread that I have here. Now your thread does come, I think it's six strands or 8 strands. Good morning, Karen. Sorry if I've missed anyone while I was stitching and wasn't looking at the comments. But we'll get this threaded here. And so as I was going to say, the thread does come, I don't know if it's 6 strands, 8 strands. I can't remember. I'll have to look at it. But anyways, I take 2 strands off in order to do a double strand for the thickness. And this one's probably a little bit long, so I'll just have to be careful when I'm stitching so that I don't end up tangling it up, because I have done too long a few times here in doing these and have definitely tangled up my thread and had to kind of cut it and restart. So also with the tape, you really only need a small piece of it, so depending on how it tears off, I will even just trim it down so that I'm not worried about having too much tape showing behind. But like I was saying earlier when I started the other one, I don't worry if the tape is covering the holes, because the needle will easily pierce through it, and I feel like it just keeps the tape in place, and you don't have to worry about whether it is going to come off, because it is literally stitched on to your page or to your ornament piece. So if you wanted to just use these as ornaments, you wouldn't necessarily have to put them on the card, but I think these will be fun. Now, I'm not going to send them to everyone. You want to make, well, in my opinion there, see, getting it a little bit of a knot. There are certain people that I know would appreciate it, and so I do have some people on my list that I know really enjoy getting the handmade cards, and I think would enjoy getting one that they could, if they chose to take it apart, take off this tree and hang it as an ornament. So you would need to include a little note to tell them that they could take it off and use it as an ornament if you choose to do it. I'm sure some people would also just keep the card and display the card as well. Just depending on how they decorate and what they enjoy doing, but just, it's almost like a little gift in the card at the same time to make it kind of like a double purpose craft. All right, going a little bit slower on this just because I happen to make this string a little long, and you can see how when it's long it can easily get tangled up. So this is why you would want to keep it short, so that you don't have to worry about those tangles. This I already, for whatever reason, I already had cut. And just going to make sure I don't have it tangled as I pull it through here. There we go. All right, so a few more stitches and we'll have this one done. Then I will show you how I do the base, and we will go ahead and get this card assembled. Now, doing it in person, or if you're doing the kit that's available and you want to follow along, this is probably a point where you would want to stop the video so that you can continue your stitching and finish up your other rows, since I already had the red done, just so you didn't have to watch me necessarily stitch every single row, but it's repeating this same process. And just go ahead and pause the video if you're working on it and want to get that part done before you continue. And then you can just start it back up again. And what I'm going to do too with these videos for reference is I'm going to post them on our YouTube channel for Cafe Crop. And that way, if you get the kit and you don't get it done right away and you want to be able to go back and view the video at some point in the future, or like me, sometimes you buy a kit and then it's next Christmas that it gets done instead of this Christmas, even though I'll have good intentions, you'll be able to still go and find it and not go, now where was that again? And how do I do it? And why did I buy all these things? So, all right, we got our last stitch going in here. And you can see it's taken a little bit longer because I had such a long piece of my floss. But I'm going to go ahead and tie this off. Make a knot, and then this one will be ready to do the back. Make our ornament out of ornament backing so we can hang it. And because it's small, I'm just going to go ahead and add one more knot. I have not had any of the ones that I've been playing with and make fall apart or anything, so I think knotting it. But if you are more comfortable adding a piece of tape over it, you know, feel free to do that. Get rid of this extra little piece of tape. And there we go. So that's going to be ready, and we'll add the back in a second. I'm going to go ahead and grab this one and just show you how I did the crisscross and did the base of the tree. Just so you can see that. So again, I'm going to start by going through from the back to the front, and then I'm going to tape that down. So I'm going to take this little piece of tape from earlier and just tape that there. And there we go. Going to double that a little bit more so I don't have quite so much to work with. Then on this, it's gonna feel kind of like you're repeating yourself a little bit because I'm gonna go up and down on the end, and then I'm going to start. If you go to the bottom, go to the second one, but I come back to the first one, and you could create any pattern you want. So if you have a different pattern that you want to create with your tree base, or with any of them, you certainly could do that. But I'm kind of doing this, I want it to end up being like little X's all along. So you can see I'm going in one, and then I'm going back, one back on the top. And then we'll go back the other way and make little X's. And that'll be, oh good, Amy. Share your card when you're done so we can see what you do. So now I'm coming back through that same hole, and I'm going to just go straight up. So now I've got them one way, and I can come back to the bottom here and just start making my X's, kind of the other slash of the X as I go through. And we'll have this nice little crisscross pattern. Kind of reminds me of a drum, you know, like the side of a drum where you see the little crisscrosses, at least in pictures. I don't know if actual drums really have little crisscrosses, but. And one last stitch here. We'll have all of our X pattern done. If you see that. And then I'm just going to come back here and run my needle through to create just a bit of a knot before I cut it off. There might be a neater way to do that. but this is my, it's nice and easy. Create a knot, and it seems to hold just fine. So do that. Just going to trim that off so I don't have a lot of, and there we go. So that's how the base is done. And again, you could add a piece of tape on top of that if you wanted to. I'll just set that aside to finish later. I'm going to put my needle over here in my bowl so I don't lose it. And now what we're going to do is add the backing on. So this is just the tree cut solid, and we're going to attach it here. What I have been doing is actually using liquid glue to attach it, and I just use the Scotch Quick Dry. I think it's tacky glue is usually how it's packaged now. I believe there are supposed to be some other demos today. I know Stacy had a death in the family, so I don't know that if any of that got done or posted, because they had other family stuff going on. So but yeah, I will check Amy and let you know. I'm pretty sure there's something after me today. But what I've done is I've just put glue here on the backs of all of the stitched areas, and I did it more on the centers so that that won't be seen. It'll be covered up, and then I'm just going to line this up onto my solid back, and because it is a little bumpy, I'm just going to hold it down for a few seconds to give the glue a chance to hold and to get stuck. And the tacky glue usually sticks pretty quickly. And what I forgot to do, all right, we'll do this. I will show you on a different one, because I completely forgot to make this into an ornament. I got so excited about putting the back on. So this one is not currently ornamented, though I think we could do it. So what I did for making it into an ornament is I used a small hole punch. So if you have a crocodile, you could use the tinier one. That's just going to peel this up because it hasn't stuck yet. And I went right for the center of the top. So you can see it just kind of right about as close as possible in the center. We might have to re-glue that since I was too hasty in gluing. And then if you have a smaller piece of thread left, maybe that you trimmed off earlier, or you can just trim a piece of thread of your floss. You can just pop that through the hole. And tie off the end. You could probably double this too. I kept my trimmings from stitching. And now we'll go ahead and add a little bit more glue just to make sure we'll stick, and line this back up. All right, hold that down for a second while we let that get nice and stuck and dry. So this is where if you're doing several, you could put these together, let them dry. But essentially all I did was put a small hole in the top. I tried to get it centered so it's going to go right around, right in the center of the tree, and you're not going to see it because you're going to have all of your stitching covering that up. So it's not going to be seen. And then you can create an ornament. So in order to put this on the card, we'll let that dry for a second. Grab our card base, and you'll get envelopes with it as well. We'll start with getting our card base assembled and give that another minute or so to dry. And I just put my base on because this already has some thickness. You could easily put this down with some foam squares as well, but I'm just putting it down with tape. I tried to get all the little pieces out. I see I missed one here. Get that out now. And then I'm going to go ahead and take my ornament part and put this on first. Now what I did in order to put it on the card front as an ornament that's removable, I thought I don't really want to glue the whole thing down. I don't want to put a lot of tape because if someone pulls it off, you don't want them tearing anything up. So I took just two little foam squares. I'm going to bring this kind of down, not necessarily gluing it, taping it down, but just trying to hide it so that it's not on the card. And just kind of place these a little bit far apart, but the foam should be fairly easy to lift up and remove. It's not a lot of adhesive, but it will also keep it in place. And I can add that right to the front of the card. And then with the note inside, if people gently move it, they should be able to then get it off with not too much effort. If you had removable or repositionable tape, that might also work. But I thought the foam would be probably the easiest to be able to work off, even if you have to explain to them to maybe take something and gently run it under there to get it off. But we've got our card on, or our ornament now on our tree, or tree ornament now on our card. And I'm just going to add a few poinsettias. I'm going to put one up there. And these are all, these are from Spellbinders, as well as the tree. The oval isn't. I used a different oval that I had available, but I'm just going to add my flowers here. And you could certainly, I'm just putting the glue in the center so that depending on how you're giving the card out, you could give some more lift to your leaves. If you're mailing it, it may not matter too much since it's going to have to go into an envelope and get flattened by the postal system. And I guess I cut out holly leaves. So I guess this one will get holly leaves. I totally grabbed the wrong leaf when I cut these out. So it'll just be unique. You can see I have more appropriate leaves, or more florally correct leaves on the sample card, and the kits will have the correct leaves. I just went and grabbed leaves, and holly made me think of Christmas, and there we go. But we'll go with it. So now I've got that put together, and all we need to do now is decide if you want some other kind of embellishment to go on the centers of your flower, or the centers of your flowers. I added some little dots around on the corners. I used crystal dots, Nuvo dots, on the top one here, but I grabbed out some stickles to try on this one and see how that looks. If you had some pearls, that could also look pretty, or some kind of a gemstone. So I'm just going to add a few dots on here. And then, of course, this will have to set aside to dry. So I'm just doing 3 randomly placed ones on either corner. I guess I kind of did triangles instead of random, but my goal was random. And there we go. The card is done, and we have an ornament that we can send off and include a little explanation. So I just thought they were really fun. I've been having fun making these. I have a pile of them that I've been working on, and just have a bunch of different ideas and ways to try them. So I hope you enjoyed it and look forward to seeing you on other lives later, and look for, I know there are some other demos this weekend. I just don't know all the times, so just keep an eye out. They'll all be available for replay as well. Thanks for watching.